Good evening, everyone. Council members, are we ready to go? Okay, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. I hereby call this November 7th meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster to order. A couple of orders of business real quick. If you look right here and right here, you will notice the white cameras installed on the wall. And just so you know, the meeting is live stream, and so your comments are being recorded. On the subject of comments, they are to be made from the microphone and only from the microphone. They begin with your name and the 100 block of your residence. So, for example, the 200 block of East Clay. They are limited to 3 minutes in length, and we prefer them to remain civil and to the point. And then finally, now is a fantastic time to turn your phones off or put them on vibrate or silent. I'll give you a moment to do that now. And with that, as you are willing or able, I invite you to join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Mr. Harris, if you would please call the roll of members.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Calise.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We go then to the approval of the minutes for the October 25th, 2022 meeting. Mr. Harris, I'm sorry, I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Council comments on the minutes. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Baker.
Aye.
Mr. Calise.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Thank you. We go then to proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
We do, Mr. President. We have Council Resolution number 88.
All right. Council Resolution number 88, 2022. I'll hear a motion on this first.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the resolution. Councilor Diaz.
Mr. President.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, may I
Oh, of course.
read the title of the resolution?
record, yes.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster calling for the repeal of the Jones Act as a means of aiding the rebuilding of Puerto Rico's infrastructure and recovery of its economy.
Okay, now I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. With that, Councilor Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's extremely important for people that are not familiar with the Jones Act that we do repeal it and fight to make sure that we have the rights to reduce the taxes when the tariff taxes is what I'm referring to, when there's actual product that needs to go to Puerto Rico versus going to Miami or other ports, due to the fact that Puerto Rico is in dire strait, not only from Maria, Irma, but Fiona. And just recently, I spoke with my father just a little while ago, where a young lady, due to the rain, had been swept away and passed away because she was trying to get through a bridge that, because of the infrastructure, was completely damaged. So continuing Puerto Rico to, to help them rebuild and have the right products without having to pay in a substantial amount in taxes. So this is why I moved this forward, and I ask anyone that can get the opportunity to contact their congressmen, the U.S. senators, and let them know that that I personally will continue fighting for this, and anybody else that wants to go to Washington with me and, make sure that we lift up our Puerto Rican citizens, because that's what they are.
Thank you, Councilor. Council comments on the resolution? From the public? Mr. Acosta Velez, please.
My name is Ivan Acosta Velez. I was born in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico, October 3rd, 59, a long time ago. What is the Jones Act? Okay, the Jones Act, any ship that's bringing products to the island of Puerto Rico has to disembark in Miami. Everything has to come off, go to another ship that has our flag, and that costs 30% of the things that you're paying. They're paying $5 for eggs. They're paying amounts that you would be shocked. And I'm shocked when I go down there. So what does the Jones Act? I also asked to really check, because I think in the Jones Act, it's also for the people that don't know about their island. It gave us the citizenship also. So I don't know. So I want to find out with the congressman when you meet with him. So I support you in this. So the people is not just something great. What it does, everything, even in emergencies, they needed gas and oil. They could not. It had to go to the 400 and something congressmen that were warning for something. So the ship had to go somewhere else and take all that oil, all that gas out, then to deliver to Puerto Rico. And I thank God that I was born in Puerto Rico. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm bilingual y estoy orgulloso de hablar español. Okay? So you guys love speaking Spanish, and I do too. So I'm bilingual. So it would be nice if you're bilingual. It makes you not smarter, but you have two languages. Okay? So I really would appreciate if you support this, but that you know that's the reason for it. It's not only saying huepa or saying, oh, I'm Spanish. It's knowing what's really affecting the island. There was a gentleman here, I don't know if you remember his name, that he said something about the statue we have dedicated in one of the parks to the Spanish-American War. Well, this was done right after they took over. So for you people that don't know our history, the Americanos came in Guanica in 1988, if I'm not mistaken, and they got through there and they beat the Spanish, so the Spanish said, here you go. Puerto Rico was almost free. That's why some people see us that we compete in other places. And we have a history with the United States. But why should we pay 30% more for products that you buy here in the States? And I really would appreciate and ask the mayor that if we can get an association with, that I know various mayors in the island, that we can become, what is that called? A friend city or whatever?
The sister.
Or whatever you call it, because it would be nice. You guys can go to the beaches and also find out why we hate mosquitoes, okay? Because they do beat us up when we come from the States, so you have to. So I ask you to support that. It might be simple to you, but look at it. It would be like if Lancaster was an island and every ship that come here couldn't come here. Had to go somewhere else. Everything's taken off, put on another ship, okay? And stuff gets damaged. It really does. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr.
excuse me. I forgot your instructions. 804 Highland Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta Velez. I'm actually going to answer your question because I did look at this a little bit. So the act that grants Puerto Ricans U.S. citizenship is the Jones-Shafroth Act from the 64th United States Congress. The resolution tonight that deals with coastwise trade, or the resolution references instead the Merchant Marine Act of 1920, also referred to as the Jones Act from the 66th U.S. Congress. So the repeal of the act mentioned in the resolution tonight would not negatively impact the U.S. citizenship of Puerto Ricans. So just so you can feel secure about that.
Oh, I'm not going nowhere.
Oh, I didn't think you were. Didn't think you were, boss man. Okay. Are there any other public comments? Ms. Darby.
I wanted to also say that I feel this is a good resolution, but we also need to look at it from another standpoint, because we had the Boston Tea Party for this very same reason. This is taxation without representation. They are taxed by the United States without being represented in any form of government and make any decisions as far as the United States, but yet they support the United States. So I think we ought to look at it also from that realm as well. just like him, 300 block of South Marshall Street.
Fantastic. Anybody else?
Thank you, Tanae.
Okey doke. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beque.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Smith Waddell.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to our first public comment period, open to those persons who have contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting to request the opportunity to address council. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
We do, Mr. President. First is Barbara Crable.
Ms. Crable?
Whom I do not see here.
Okay. Well, we'll address that later if she's here. Are there any others, Mr. Harris?
Yes, Mr. President. Next is Becky DeHaven.
My name's Becky DeHaven, 200 block of East.
Hold up. Thank you.
Thanks. My name's Becky DeHaven, 200 block of East Clay Street. On Columbus Day, I was trying to check whether there's street cleaning, and I called the two numbers that I usually call if I'm in doubt about that. And I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I assumed it wasn't street cleaning. Well, lo and behold, I get a ticket. I go down to parking authority and I show them the numbers and they said, they're not our numbers, they're City Hall. So I go up to City Hall and I'm talking to them and she explained to me that if I disagree with paying this ticket, that I will eventually get something in the mail that states you agree or disagree, and you send that back in the mail, and then they send you another letter if you say you disagree, that you will go before the district justice and plead your case. Well, I'm waiting for this letter. I never got it, but on October the 26th, I get a bill not for $25, but for $35. So last Friday, I went to City Hall and I was talking to a very nice receptionist, and she was trying to check this out for me, and she said, I think the best thing you can do is go to the city council meeting and plead your case. I'm 77 years old, $35 is a lot of money to me. And I did find out at City Hall that the two numbers I called were not in service. So I don't know whether they're in service now or not, but I do that on a regular basis. If I'm in doubt about city cleaning, I do use these two numbers. Why I couldn't get through, I don't know.
Ms. DeHaven, Mayor, please.
Yes, thank you, Ms. DeHaven. So a couple of things. One, we have had a lot of troubles with our phone system, but the one number that you can call is the main reception number. And I think you spoke to Mirta, who was the helpful receptionist at the front desk. And if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Jess to get Jessica King, who's our chief of staff in the back, to get your contact information so that I can follow up. My office can follow up with you directly about this. Columbus Day is not a holiday that the city of Lancaster celebrates. It's not a day off for us. Tomorrow is. So this is my opportunity to remind everybody that there is no street sweeping tomorrow, Election Day, and any day that the city of Lancaster is closed equals no street sweeping.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so Jess King is standing up right there. She's going to get your contact info and you can go from there. Thank you, ma'am.
Can I ask one more question? Can I leave now?
Oh, yes, please. Not like please, like you're welcome to stick around, but you don't have to. Do we have any other public comment, Mr. Harris?
We do, Mr. President. Next is James Bowl.
Mr. Bull, for you.
Thank you. This work? All right. Thank you, Council President. My name is James Bull, 500 block of Poplar Street, and a Catholic worker here in Lancaster. For the past 4 weeks in a row, my colleague Sean Domensic has discussed the city's policy and the mayor's enforcement which criminalizes the homeless for sleeping in public parks despite having nowhere else to go. He's outlined the insanity of this policy and explained how it violates the human rights of those harassed and cited by police for the crime of sleeping in the only place they can. Finally, he's read quotations from Martin versus City of Boise, in which the Ninth Circuit ruled that this policy is cruel and unusual punishment and therefore unconstitutional. I'm extremely disappointed in our city council and our mayor that nothing has been done, not a plan to change city code, not a moratorium on enforcement, not even a resolution on the right to rest in the city of Lancaster. Shortly, we will hear about the distribution of ARPA funds to build affordable housing. And we will doubtless be told to quiet down about the right to rest because the city is addressing the housing crisis. But how can we trust the city government to allocate millions of dollars where it can't even respect basic human rights? How can we trust your strategy to end homelessness when your own laws are a part of the crisis? It's very strange that our city government is taking a stance on the federal policy of the Jones Act when we have not stopped violating human rights in our own municipal policy. It's even more strange that we have time to amend the property maintenance ordinance and the sewer control plan when we have not dealt with the moral outrage and tyrannical policy of criminalizing the sleep of our poorest citizens. Equally odd is the fact that Tenfold will be holding a camp-out event in Clipper Stadium to raise money for the emergency housing efforts. And yet, if those participants camped out in Binns Park, they would be issued criminal citations. I'm not asking City Council to neglect these other issues. I'm just asking them to get their priorities straight. If the City of Lancaster believes that housing is a human right, then they should act like it and change the current cruel law. If not, then the city should stop patting itself on the back for its affordable housing projects and be honest about their willingness to sick the cops on anyone with the audacity to be both unhoused and asleep in Lancaster. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Do we have any others, Mr. Harris?
We do not, Mr. President.
Okay. That brings us to reports requested by council. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
We do not, Mr. President.
Thank you. That brings us to reports of committees of council held on November 1st, 2022. We'll begin with the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Diaz.
I don't believe that we actually we didn't meet. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilor. That would then take us to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee did not meet.
Thank you. Then we go to the report of the Economic Development Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. The Economic Development Committee did meet during the last session. We discussed Administration Bill number 23-2022, appropriating American Rescue Plan Act funds for affordable housing projects, which we will be doing the first reading for tonight. Also discussed the ARPA review process and the steps that it took to get to this administration bill. That concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you. We go to the Finance Committee. Councilor Beke.
The Finance Committee did not meet.
Thank you. Community Planning. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning did meet. We had 3 items on the agenda. One being Administration Bill number 22, which will be up for first reading this evening, amending the Property Maintenance Ordinance Code, and 2, amending the sewer plan to include 40 Longfellow Drive project and also amending sewer control plan to include Morel project properties. That was concluding community planning.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. We go then to the Personnel Committee. Councilor Calikst.
Thank you, Council President. The Personnel Committee did meet on Tuesday, November 1st, and reviewed the nominations to the Historical Architectural Review Board, Lancaster Industrial Development Authority, Lancaster Airport Authority, and the Downtown Investment District Authority. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Calixte. That brings us to our legislative agenda, where we begin with nominations for appointment. Councilor Calixte.
Thank you again. I make a motion, and I move to appoint the following individuals. Julie Hughes to the Historical Architectural Review Board for a term from December 31st, 2022 to December 31st, 2025. Glenn Ebersole Jr. to the Lancaster Industrial Development Authority for a term from December 31st, 2022 to December 31st, 2027. And Richard Stauffer to the Lancaster Airport Authority for a term from December 31st, 2022 to December 31st, 2027. And Teddy Bouchard for appointment to the Downtown Investment District Authority for a term from November 8, 2022 to December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Council comments on the proposed appointments. Comments from the public.
Just a question. Last time we had this, Ms. Diaz nominated someone, Mr. Falcon, and we asked the people to be here. Are those people here in the audience? The people that were nominated?
At
Yes.
least one.
Yes, the others were reappointments,
Yep.
excuse me, sorry.
So the new appointment, the gentleman is right here, is the owner of a lovely bookstore on Prince Street, which I recommend to everybody for what it's worth, Red Rose Books. And then the other two are reappointments. Did I get the name
Yeah,
wrong?
but I thought you said
Okay, cool.
even reappointments, because we had that issue that some people in the audience, it wasn't me, but I'm following up for them, that we said we will bring them in so people get to see who they need to contact, personal basis. If you can't do it this time, but you was recommended for last time, so please
Okay.
do it, because it makes you look better, okay?
Council
All right.
President, if I may.
Please, Councilor Bacon.
Oh, just to say that we also do these in committee as well. So these get introduced, and often those folks come to the committee but can't make it to the regular meeting as well. Terry was very kind to come to both, but in most cases, if someone's coming, they're also at the committee meeting. So I recommend you stop by those.
Fantastic. Any other comments from the public? Please? Fantastic.
Thank you.
Also, you're supposed to make your comments from the podium, but I'll let that slide. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beke.
Aye.
Mr. Calise.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Okay. Thank you, Councilor Calixte. That brings us to ordinances for first reading. These do not require a motion and a second. Have a good evening, folks. We begin with Administration Bill Number 22, 2022. Mr. Harris.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, adopting a property maintenance code to prescribe effective standards and minimum requirements for the safeguarding of persons and buildings located in the City of Lancaster, and to protect the public health and safety of citizens and visitors against the hazards of inadequate, defective, or unsafe structures, providing for the adoption of the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code as published by the International Code Council Incorporated, provided for the violations, penalties, remedies, and appeals, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
I'll hear a motion. Or, no, I won't. I will not. I just said that. God. Ms. Geiser, please. No, I don't.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This amendment to the Chapter 223 property maintenance is the third in the series of legislative updates to improve the quality and safety of housing in the Bureau of Property Maintenance and Housing Inspections. And this was following the amendments to the lead poisoning prevention, lead hazard control ordinance, and the Bureau of Property Maintenance the rental property ordinance. And we are recommending to update the adopted standard from 2015, which we currently use, to 2021. So it's a change in the code. They modify it every several years. In 2008, Council adopted IPMC as the industry standard for property maintenance code. And this code provides established guidelines that cover enforcement and administrative guidelines for the city housing inspectors. Included in the codes are standards for common violations, such as chipping and peeling paint and grass and weeds, and also goes to more technical areas such as electrical, sanitation, and plumbing. And along with adopting this code, the housing inspectors are required to maintain their IPMC certification. So this is really a technical ordinance to adopt the 2021 IPMC in its entirety, except for the additions, deletions, and modifications as listed in Exhibit A. We collaborated closely with the Bureau of Building Code Administration and the Bureau of Fire to ensure that everything in this code aligns with codes in those bureaus as well, to avoid confusion. So the guidance of this code will ensure that minimum requirements for the safeguarding of persons and buildings located in the city of Lancaster and protect the public health and safety of citizens and visitors against the hazards of inadequate, defective, or unsafe existing structures and residences and buildings, exterior and interior of rental properties. And I'm glad to take any questions you may have.
Councilors?
Ms. Geiser?
Yes.
Hi. Mr. Nixon was here at our committee meeting and went through this with us, and I just want to reiterate a question that was asked to him at that time. Are there any major changes that impact property owners between the 2015 and 2021 standards? These are I understand these are building code standards, so I just would like to know if there's anything that stands out in particular, or that would be particularly onerous on property owners, or are these pretty standard?
Yes, thank you for the question. There are no significant differences in the regulations. Most of them are verbiage changes or changes that we had also made in 2015. So nothing of major note. You're welcome.
Other council comments? From the public?
Yes, I do. This is the young lady you told me to call about my problem, and since you mentioned lead in this project, it affects me. What happens when the city's involved in contracts that they don't follow through, and you have this? What alternative? Because I don't want to go to court, but I am going to go to Telemundo, and I'm serious about that. Because I've come to you guys, I've talked to two of you personally, you've seen the stuff they did in my place, okay? Ivan doesn't want to be here all the time bothering you, because I know you're busy. But I learned something in Holyoke High School, in Holyoke, Massachusetts. It was an all-white school. And they showed me, Ivan, fight for your rights. So you have to blame my high school. So I'm asking, if you're going to accept this, what happens? I gave her my number, didn't have a courtesy. You're the one that told me to communicate with her. Nothing has been done.
Okay.
So can you give me some direction if you're adopting this? How is this going to fall on my plate since it hasn't been done? You're talking about lead. They did a horrible job, and I'm wondering if you can find us, or maybe they'll answer you as president of council, if the person that did the job in my house from Scranton, are we still giving them contracts? We are?
Oh,
No, I'm sorry, you shook your head, so
yeah, sorry, no, I don't know.
would
so-
you be able to find out?
I could find out. Well, yes, I
maybe
can
they'll
find out if
answer
that
your
person is
call.
still
Okay.
on the list of contracts, though I'm going to ask you to move the rest of this comment to the second public comment period.
No problem, but since you mentioned lead, that's the reason. You
Yeah, no,
opened the door.
I understand.
Okay,
I'm going to go ahead
open the
and
door.
move it down there, but thank you, Mr. Acosta-Velas. Ms. Grievous?
Good evening. As many of you know, my name is Irene Grievous. I own a property on 901 Manor Street. We're talking about the maintenance codes. How does one, distinguish the difference between what is needed and what is not. When they say about the safety, the health and safety of the concern of a property, if there are light switches, hypothetically, or a cover plate needed for a electric panel box, how is that constitute to a condemnation? As I've been in for over a year now. And to use those small things as far as cleaning and as far as small minor repairs, to make it a health and safety concern, how is that even into the policy and procedures that's not uniform or consistent in any way with what's current and what they're proposing for the new policy?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's a question about the text of the property maintenance code, and so I'm not sure it's one I can really answer here, Ms. Grievous. The text of the property maintenance code is lengthy and specific as to what constitutes a violation and what does not. And frankly, as someone who has had the home that I live in dinged for missing cover plates on my light switches, I acknowledge that it is annoying, but it is the ongoing reality of the International Property Maintenance Code. And it feels like the rest of your question is not directed to the content of the ordinance. And so, again, I would direct you, like I directed Mr. Acosta-Velez, to the second public comment period.
That's fine.
Thank you.
But also with the workmanship, how is that a concern of the health and safety concern when that's basically under perfection? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be the quality of workmanship in doing work inside a house, electrical, plumbing, woodworking, has a direct connection to health and safety. But again, it does not feel like this question is about the text of the International Property Maintenance Code or the adoption that we're doing here tonight. So again, I'm going to direct this question to the second public comment period, and we'll chase it down there. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you.
Other questions from the public on the text of the ordinance? Okay. Hearing none, in that case, I guess we will move right along. Thank you, Ms. Geiser. Okay. That takes us to Administration Bill number 23, 2022. Mr. Harris.
Excuse me, Mr. President. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, directing the award of contracts for the creation and production of new affordable housing units pursuant to a previous appropriation of $5 million of American Rescue Plan Act proceeds in October 2021 by ordinance number 18, 2021, appropriating an additional $5 million of American Rescue Plan Act proceeds funds received by the city in 2021, and providing for the award of $3,400,000 of such funds, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect as provided by Pennsylvania law.
Okay, Councilor Arroyo, please.
Thank you, Council President. As read in the title, this bill awards $5 million to projects creating 85 new affordable housing units in Lancaster City, in addition to appropriating an additional $3.4 million for the rehabilitation and preservation of 443 existing affordable units, and $1.6 million to allocate for the homelessness continuum of care, contingent upon a match from the county. At our last council committee meeting, I outlined the process and steps the committee took to get to this point. The bill presented to council is a result of a public and transparent process and request for proposal that was reviewed by a committee that was made up of city staff and council members, including myself and Council President Smith Waddell. That concludes, that is all, Council President.
Okay. Council comments on the motion. Sorry, no, there's not. Sorry. Council comments on the bill. Councilor Diaz.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to include Darlene's request for $500,000, and that would be to allocate the amount overall and amending Section 2 to include the South End concerned neighbors in the amount, like I said, $500,000 for the project of Community Hub. I said it backward. For the Community Hub project.
Okay. I'll second the motion. Motion and a second. Council comments on the motion to amend.
Council President, if I may.
Please, Councilor Arroyo.
Just a quick note that this request for a proposal was made public and was developed in support of all council members, and just quite frankly is a little insulting to the public transparency process, and just wanted to make that known. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Other council comments on the motion to amend?
Council President?
Councilor Beke.
Well, this is a first read this evening. There are only 2 members of council that have seen the proposal. Would there be an opportunity for any other members of council to see the proposal as submitted by South End concerned neighbors that's on the table?
We have it, and I think it's unsealed at this point. What's the, yes.
This is it becomes more of a process question, I guess, then as well.
So can you ask me the process question again? I'm sorry.
Only because this is a first read, so we're not able to take action on this evening. Would there be would there be time for council to see that proposal?
I would think so before, so hold on a second. Yes, we have it. I'm sorry, Ms. King, what's the best way to distribute it to all council members? And I know Councilor Arroyo and I have it, but should it come from someone else or? And thank you for, yep.
I think it might be good for us to ask the city solicitor just about the process for that, since they were distributed to the committee for review, and at this point, they're still not public record until contracts are made.
Aha.
So we'd want to discuss what the best way is, and then if you're only reading that proposal compared to all the proposals, that sort of redoes the committee process, so that kind of calls into question the process question. But, so I don't feel like I have an answer for you this evening.
That's okay. I'm aware that our solicitor is on the other side of the pond. Do we have any sense of when he might return?
He'll be back on Monday, the following Monday.
Monday. Okay.
And if I could also just
Please.
add, for everybody's knowledge, there is a second RFP that is going to be issued later this month for community facilities. And so while this first initial RFP was specifically focused on housing, and it was given the priority of housing based on the many months and comments that we received as part of our community engagement, we prioritized housing as the first tranche, if you will, of ARPA funds that would be disseminated to the community. In that review, as Councilor Arroyo laid out, we also came to the realization that that $5 million was not enough. And in this piece of legislation before you, it's adding an additional pot of money of $5 million that will be split between the preservation of existing housing as well as the homelessness continuum of care. That does not preclude, that's separate from the additional RFP around community facilities, because we also heard from the community in the engagement that there was interest in projects outside of housing that had to do with the betterment of our neighborhoods, the betterment of other community facilities, and that RFP is forthcoming in the next week or so. And so this is an invitation to council as well to consider that there will be another opportunity for respondents to align their proposal to a request that can be part of a process that would alleviate any concerns about the South End Concerned Neighborhood Project not being funded as a housing project, but as a community facility project. So I'm just going to put that on the table for council's consideration as well.
That was very thorough, Mayor. Thank you. Other council comments? Okay, comments from the public. Mr. Acosta-Velez.
My name is Ivan Acosta-Velez. Mr. Arroyo, with due respect, when we question you, we're not trying to defund your program. That's what council's about. That's why you got elected. So my concern is, President of Council, that I think you have the power to change this because we keep on telling this project later and later and later. And I guess council knows that later and later and later, it's going to cost more money since the time they've been waiting for the program to get accepted, okay? Because things are going up. If you go to Home Depot, you can see the cost, okay? That's my concern. My other concern for this project is, Darlene, with due respect, is this going to have some housing or stuff in it?
Mr. Acosta-Velez, I gotta keep you.
Okay, no problem.
Keep you here.
But
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure that I'm saying the truth. So, okay, it has some housing in it. So I don't know what the change is, but I really would hope that all of you that come and knocking out our neighborhood when it's election time, that you think about it. Really think about it. And when we question stuff, we're not trying to embarrass you. We're in the outfields, okay? I saw you a lot, 7th Ward, when you ran. I haven't seen you a lot there, just to go to work, okay?
If I may, Mr. President.
Councilor Diaz.
I just have a question for Darlene.
Ms. Byrd, if you would.
Ms. Byrd, I know that this project is to your heart and it's for the community. Have you considered the space that you would have, that they would use, for the possibility of people that are homeless to be able to be sheltered, especially in the winter, in this particular location?
That would be a possibility that could happen. I mean, there's a lot that could happen with that space. I mean, it's nothing that we actually said yes, but there's nothing that would stop us from that. We have a homeless man that lives down on Dolphin Street that's living out of his car. Would we not consider that?
Thank you, ma'am.
Other council comments? Other comments from the public? Mr. Stuldrer.
Tim Stuldrer, One United Lancaster. Two questions. First, what would be the timeline for the subsequent RFP?
We currently have a draft that we're reviewing, and there's a couple of revisions that I've made to clarify the breadth of community facilities that could be supported and to basically tighten up the language a little bit, but we're very close to being able to issue that second RFP.
And then when would it be, when would you anticipate grants being awarded subsequent to that?
We would follow a similar timeline process to give people adequate time to be able to respond. I think that was 60 days for a response, and then we would convene another review team and score the proposals and make recommendations. The committee would make recommendations to council.
I believe it was, I'm so sorry, the difference is 4 days. Was it 60 days or 8 weeks that we really ought to?
I think we can look back to that. We have a draft schedule, but that will start when it's issued, and so that's it will be a similar time frame. I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head.
That's okay, Mayor, thank you.
And with respect to the ordinance on the table, am I correct that it does not in fact appropriate money to the Homeless Coalition and that would require a follow-up ordinance?
Yes, it would. So we appropriate this additional, take this $5 million out of sort of our imagine like a mythological ARPA bank, and set it aside, and then ask the administration and the county to come to a sort of a joint funding operations agreement. And so then the allocation of the $1.6 million to that would require a separate agreement of council, because it would be a separate intermunicipal agreement, which must, as Mr. Handwerger has explained to me at length, be authorized separately.
Very good, thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. 8 weeks. DJ, were you?
Good evening, Vicky Wright Smith, 100 block of Marshall Street, South Marshall Street. So the second RFP, did you indicate what the amount would be available? I don't think I heard that.
We have not yet indicated the amount that would be available, but at this point, it would be greater than $5 million. I can say that much.
Thank you. Reverend.
The only problem, Reverend Edward Bailey, the only problem I have pushing this off to another date is that there's still no guarantee to the South Ann group that their project will be done. And as an African American, we always hear promises, wait till the next turn, wait till the next turn, and nothing ever happens. I think for the city council to look at South Ann and look at the South Side and see what you have done in the last 4 or 5 years. And I don't see anything. I see things going on downtown, great things. It would be nice to put something on South Ann to support what they're trying to do, so the rest of the community can have faith that you folks still believe in the Southeast. Because we keep getting promises. People keep saying, wait. As an African American who's 73 years old, I've been told wait long enough that I don't believe in wait anymore. So if there's a possibility that you can fund this project and make this happen as a good faith effort on the city council, so that people in the community can say, and I'm not threatening nobody about voting for you or not, because you know you don't need that many votes to get on the seat, but a good faith effort to say to South Ann so they don't have to keep coming back, and then people being worried about how they speak and whether they say things in the right way. But do it because it's the right thing to do. That area needs a community center. They're also trying to provide some housing. If you want them to put homeless in there and work that out, they can work that out. But let's get a project going, and let's not make them come down 20 times and bring community folk, and don't bring me anymore because I'm tired. I get tired of talking to the council, asking you to do the right thing and help folk out, inspire folks so people can see on the South Side everything isn't going on downtown. I'm hoping you do that. Please. Thank you.
May I, Council President?
Of course, Mayor.
Thank you for your comments, Reverend Bailey, and I'd encourage you to check out our website to look at the millions of dollars that we've invested south of King. Milburn Park, many, many houses related to lead prevention that I'm just letting you know that exists as a resource for you to look at.
I understand that, but here you got buildings going up downtown. You got structures that people can see. Many of the houses in the Southeast aren't owned by the people who live in the Southeast.
I
They're
understand.
absentee owners. So the money you're providing is not helping the community at all. It's helping those folk who own those homes.
Well,
South Ann, and I'll shut up, South Ann is owned by community folk. We can see what you're doing for a community. You can't see anything but lead abatement. That's nice that you're doing that. Thank you for doing that. But we need to see more than just these programs that folk keep doing. We need to see the same thing you do when you're asked to put the hotel up downtown, the baseball stadium, the library, all these brand new buildings. You took a bridge. Did you remember there was a bridge across Queen Street? It cost millions of dollars to put that bridge up. They tore it down and put up something new. We can't even get the streets hardly paved in the southeast. It'd be nice, it'd be real nice, and I'm not gonna beg nobody. It's nice to do something that we can see, we can touch, we can walk by it and see. That's what the city helped put in the southeast. That's what the city cares about their neighborhood, and not about these programs that nobody can see.
My second comment that I'll make for council consideration is just to say that in the process of going through this, and I do understand that this is a process, that we engaged in a review that had criteria that was stipulated as part of our ARPA agreement, that this is what we were going to prioritize. Unfortunately, and fortunately, that the South End Concerned Neighborhood Project is much more of a community facility than it is a housing application. We were looking at multiple housing units that were being developed, and we looked at cost per unit. That was a major driver of the consideration given to the projects that are being recommended for funding. In addition, there was existing housing that was being preserved. The existing units that were requested, we wanted to really take a look at those funds that were being requested for the preservation of the existing units that are managed by South End Concerned Neighbors. In the end, what was decided as it related to this proposal was that it was much more in keeping with a community facility, and this is, I'm just sharing from the review team in collectively, that it was a community facility given what Ms. Bird has talked to us each about, has met with me about, et cetera. So I understand that this means coming back again. It also means that the opportunity is that the proposal will score much higher in the next round because it is in fact a community facility. It is a square peg in a square hole, which is what we want to be funding and supporting. I believe that there is support on the council dais for this project and an understanding and appreciation for Ms. Bird's enthusiastic and tenacious support, as well as other members of South End Concerned Neighbors related to this project. And I don't want to diminish that in any way or the concept. I think that this is really a question before council about the process. The second, which I know how that sounds, and I appreciate that as well. The second part that I will say is to Ms. Bird, is that I would appreciate having an opportunity to work with you more carefully as it relates to your budget, if indeed you are to submit a second round, because there are elements related to costing out the project and the proposal itself that I believe we can be helpful with. And with that, I will stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any other comments from the public? Mr. Velez,
Yeah, but
Mr.
you
Velez.
didn't answer my question.
Okay, Mr. Velez.
I'm not trying to get rough about it, but who are you giving these to? You're saying apartments. What apartments? Is it Ivan Apartments? Julio Apartments? Come on, you talking about,
Okay,
honestly,
Mr.
and we're not
Acosta-Velez, if
getting
you talk over me, I'm not gonna, please have a seat. Thank you.
Council President, I'm happy to read off the awardees and the number of units that were produced by each one.
Councilor Arroyo, if you would like to do that, you feel free.
Just for reference, and I did mention this during the last council committee meeting, acknowledging each of the awardees. SDL Devco LLC is producing 45 new units for $2 million awarded by the ARPA funds. YWCA Lancaster for 16 new units with $500,000. Chestnut Housing Corporation with 8 new units for $550,000. Community Basics Inc. For 9 units for $500,000, and Lancaster Area Habitat for Humanity for 7 units for $450,000, for a total of 85 total units, total new units, and $4 million total funds. As far as the preservation and rehabilitation of existing affordable housing units, Partners with Purpose will preserve 97 units for $500,000. Tenfold will preserve 46 units for $1 million, Saca Development Corporation, 30 units for $850,000, and Lancaster City Housing Authority for 270 units for $1,050,000, for a total of 443 total units being preserved for $3.4 million, for reference, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Is that you, Councilor Craig? Sorry, Councilor Diaz.
Yes, I have a question regarding the units. Are we looking at apartments? Are we looking at homes, single homes, and how many actual units of homes are going to be built? Or is this just off the wall? This is the units we're going to have, but we don't know what it is.
Councilor Arroyo, would you like to?
Yeah, most of these are, as far as new units, most of them are apartment units. When it comes to the preservation, some of them do include single-family homes that were included throughout the proposal. So it's a good mix of diverse types of units throughout the proposals.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Councilor Arroyo. Okay, any other comments from the public before we move along? Going once, going twice? Any other comments from the dais? Going once, going twice? Okay, Mr. Harris, on the motion to amend.
And Mr. President, you were the second on that motion?
I suppose I was, yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Arroyo,
No.
Ms. Bakay,
No.
Mr. Cleese,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
No.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Ms. Walsh,
I will be abstaining from this vote as I work for one of the agencies that will be awarded funding, assuming that this is passed.
and President Smith-Waddell.
Aye, which fortunately or unfortunately brings us to 3 and 3. And so the motion to amend fails. Okay, so now we have the original motion, and there remains an opportunity for council comment.
Mr. President, this is a first reading.
It is a first reading. I just, if there were additional council comments on the, I don't believe that we got council comments on the unamended motion before the amendment. So with that in mind, I was offering the opportunity for council comments.
Council President,
Councilor Walsh, please.
thank you. As a question for clarification in regards to process, assuming, well, one point, for organizations that submitted applications but are not recommended for funding in this particular round, how were they notified?
Each of the organizations which applied was notified by a call either from me, Councilor Arroyo, or or a member of the mayor's staff, whether they were recommended to be funded or not funded.
Okay.
Yep.
And when you said for organizations that applied, was there an application received for the South End?
South End Concerned Neighbors did apply several of the applications, so I'll break it out for you. So South End Concerned Neighbors did apply. Several of the applications arrived in ways that we deemed technically incomplete but not fatal, and so we reached out to those entities and said, okay, please submit this completing information so that we can consider your project. With the submission of that additional information, those projects which were deemed to have to have made it past the exclusion criteria were then presented to the committee, which met on 3 separate occasions, if I'm remembering correctly, to evaluate the projects and the funding amounts. They were then, after the committee made a recommendation by motion second and vote of the committee, each of them were notified by phone call. And I believe it was Councilor Arroyo who contacted Ms. Byrd as representative of South End Concerned Neighbors.
Great. And then that project, in addition to the other projects which were not recommended for allocation, were they given any sort of feedback as to what made their application not as competitive as the others?
They were, but I think I see the mayor leaning forward if you would like to
I'm
provide
sorry.
it.
So, two of the applications did not either produce new housing units or preserve existing units. And the third application was not funded because it did not meet the affordability criteria. It proposed at 80% area median income for the county, and were specific to the city's, we had a specific criteria of meeting 60% of the county's median income, which is more on par with the city residents.
Thank you. I appreciate it, just for clarification on the process and next steps.
I would say, before we go to any other council comments, any community facility, we encourage to apply for, community facility funds. There are many in our community that are in need, and we're happy to have funds allocated for that purpose. Ma'am,
Just one final question.
if you would just give us your name again.
Sure, Vicky Wright Smith, the
Thank you.
100 block of South Marshall Street.
Yep.
And I was just curious, Counselor Walsh, when you abstained, you said that you worked for one of the awardees?
That's correct.
Can you state for the record which company that is? Because I don't know.
I work for the Lancaster City Housing Authority.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, I have another question, if I can.
Councilor Diaz.
I'm looking back at probably some of the comments the Reverend had made, and kind of going back into history in regards to Christmas Attics,
Mhm.
which is obviously a community center as well. Is there any reason why that particular center has never been awarded any type of grants or any type of funding in order to restore it, or maybe even have apartments in that, mixed use with the community? I'm just curious to why that has never happened.
Well, to my knowledge, and somebody could correct me, I am not aware of any application made by Crispus Attucks, either as a subsidiary of the Community Action Partnership or as an independent organization as it existed previously for ARPA funds or home funds, for example, to date. But they would in fact be eligible, is my understanding, for community facilities funds, and I know that they are moving toward an effort to restore that, which, as it stands, is the only existing community center with an African-American history, but of course, as you know, is a subsidiary. So if, actually, did I see? Yeah, there's Derek, right? Like, that is absolutely a funding opportunity that would be open to Crispus Attucks. I know they're putting a lot of effort. It's a big building, and it'll be a big lift to get it up to snuff. I hope that answered your question, Councilor Diaz. But somebody else who keeps better track of what grants have come in could answer that question for me, or more effectively than I can. Sorry.
Does the mayor have any comments, since you were in city council before and nothing has actually been allocated for them?
Just to say that this was not something from my role in city council, but I am aware that for many years, the city did support the feeding program, the meal program that was at Crispus Attucks. But as it relates now, I can tell you that there is a capital planning process that's underway for the facility, and they would be eligible for funding as part of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Okay. Going once, going twice. Mr. Stuhldreher.
Tim Stuhldreher, One United Lancaster. Process question regarding the amendment that failed this evening. Does that mean that an amendment with that content cannot be brought forward at the next meeting this month, or could the amendment be reintroduced?
First of all, oh my God. And second of all, to be honest, I don't know, but I am not sure there's a preclusion, and our lawyer is not in the country. So that's going to have to be one where we do a little digging and get you an answer. My apologies. Unless somebody else is like Robert's Rules wizard in a way that I'm not. Okay. Sorry. Going once, going twice. Okay. More on that later. We move now to resolutions, to resolutions. Administration Resolution Number 86, 2022. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official Sewage Facilities Plan for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig, please.
Council President, as with any new or existing building project that will increase the original footprint, we are required to amend the sewer control plan to include property at 440 Longfellow Drive. We've done these many times, and it's to prevent hazard and health problems and safeguarding of the residents in that particular area. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. Other council comments on Administration Resolution Number 86? Comments from the public?
Since you guys raised the water bill and sewer bill, all of you voted for it, 13%. Is this going to cover this? Or are we going to have to dig into our Social Security pocket to cover this?
Yeah, Mr. Acosta-Velez, this actually does not authorize the sewer control plan does not authorize any new project. It only indicates whether or not, it indicates that there's been a review, which council then approves, that there is existing sewer capacity. It is not the authorization of a new sewer project or an increase in sewer fees.
So my question is, this will be covered by the owner of the house? Or are we going to cover it from our funds?
The sewer control plan, which is conducted by the Department of Community Planning and Economic Development, is that right? Do you do that review? Who does that?
It's a combination.
Okay, come on up. Thank you, Director Dels. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. To echo what Council President said, the purpose of this action is to affirm that there is capacity in the sewer system for this land development. So it does not affect the sewer fees that you noted, Mr. Acosta. And your other question, Council President, was who reviews this? Mm-hmm. This is primarily staff within the Department of Public Works who focus on the sewer infrastructure. Members of our planning staff also review it as well.
Thank you, Director.
And to answer the question, my question is, we know what you have it for. What is the cost? Is there a cost? Because I know it's not free.
There's a unit cost in staff time for the review, which is paid for by existing general and sewer fund dollars. In fact, I'm not even sure the sewer fund dollars go to cover staff time. I assume that's general fund expenditures, but somebody could clarify that for me.
Nope, that's all sewer fund dollars that are covering those costs, and this is a calculation, that's it. And any new facilities, the construction costs are, nothing happens. This is until they go through the land development process and so on, but they have to have this first, and I'll just remind council and for Mr. Acosta-Velez knowledge, this was a function that was performed by DEP, but they passed it on to us. So this is just confirming that there's capacity in our system. That's all it is.
Great, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beke.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Okay, that brings us to Administration Resolution Number 87, 2022. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving an adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official sewage facilities plan for the city of Lancaster.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. This, just like the last resolution that we did, that was for a new land development project. This one is for an existing property at 317 to 319 North Mary Street, and it covers the exact same thing.
Thank you. Council comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beke.
Aye.
Mr. Cleese.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Smith Waddell.
Aye. Thank you. That concludes our legislative agenda. We go now to our second public comment period, which is reserved for comments about items not elsewhere addressed on the agenda. I will begin with Mr. Velez and Ms. Grievous because I asked them to move earlier comments to this part of the agenda.
I'm going to use my dart. I'm 63 years old. I think I'm young because I've always spoken up. And I might be 80, but I'm still going to speak up. The lead problem that you left in my house is horrible. You all should be ashamed that I keep coming here and you think I'm going away. I ain't going to Puerto Rico. I'm going to be here. And you're going to hear this until it's done correctly. You saw the thing they do? You saw. You paid $2,000 for this guy, or $20,000 with the whole thing, $2,000 to do a floor that's supposed to go like that. The floor is going like that. Okay? And I have pictures to prove it. The other thing, the roof that you pay $7,000 for keeps on leaking. It takes a licking and it keeps on licking all the time. What I'm asking is, before I go to the press, because I am going to the press, if I keep on darting here, that you guys are, oh, Ivan needs to shut up. No, Ivan is not going to shut up until they fix it. Okay? And I already called Telemundo, and they're just waiting for my okay. This is the last time I come on this issue, but not the last time that I'm going to come on other issues. Okay? And with this, I wish you luck without mentioning anything. And thank you very much for listening to me and ignoring me. But remember, elections come, and I'm not going to ignore you.
Thank you, Mr. Acosta Velez. Ms. Grievous. Okay. Anybody else? Hearing, oh, Reverend, are you coming to the podium? Yes. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you for listening, and I was glad to see that you could say aye. I heard all the ayes on all the other programs, and not one nay, all ayes. And I just would like to be able to find a way that somehow when folk on my side of town come, we can get a unanimous aye, like you got on the other projects. And maybe somebody here can come to the community and teach us how do we get that, so we don't sound like we're arguing, fussing, begging. So what do we need to do so that we can get the ayes from you folk and not sound like somebody called me today about Brother Waddell and said,
Reverend, I'm going to ask, just because that was done in an electoral capacity, I'm just going to ask you not to mention
I'm
that
not
here.
I'm not going to, they asked me about him being the first black person. And I said to the person, that's an insult to us. There's been many black people who could have sat in these seats, many black people who could have led in this city, but we haven't had it. And somehow you have to ask, it's not the black folk that the problem is with. There's something wrong in the city. That it's a surprise when a black person runs for a higher office and going to be the first black. We need to get rid of that. So somehow if you can come down and teach us so we can figure out how to do this stuff, Maybe we're not politically astute enough. Maybe you don't come to the community enough. You know, maybe that'd be nice. For example, you know we have a community center as well. But I'm not going to compete with Crispus Attucks because they're necessary. What they do and what we do is necessary. But we shouldn't have to fight one another to get funding while everybody else gets funding, and it seems like there's no fight. I listen to the groups of people that you're giving the money to. They get it all the time. All the time. And they don't have to jump through hoops. They don't have to explain anything. They don't have to have a community activist. Matter of fact, they don't even have to show up to the meeting. So I would hope that if we're not there, you help us. And the last thing I'll say is some of you may not be here when you ask the South End folk to push it off to another date. So that means somebody else may be sitting in your seat. And that means there's going to be another problem with somebody new who's sitting in the seat. They got to run through the same thing all over again. Come on. Help us out so we can stay friends. I don't want no more enemies. I'm a good friend. I'm a hell of an enemy, though. A good friend. God bless you.
Thank you, Reverend. Okay. With that, we go to the report of the mayor.
I have no report this evening, Council President.
Okay,
It's all yours.
here we go. So at the beginning of the meeting tonight, I handed a piece of paper to Mr. Harris, CC Sharon Allen Spann, Director of Human Resources, and my Council Vice President, who has been really just an incredible resource for the past 3 years, Councilor Amanda Bakay. And that piece of paper indicates my resignation from the position of President of the Council of the City of Lancaster, as well as member of the Council of the City of Lancaster. I have a lot of hope in the future of Lancaster City and the future of this council, but it is time for me to step away from the role of council president. I intend to pursue new avenues to support the city and broader community of Lancaster. And I think that all I would say, I actually have a long list of, you know what, when is my last one? Did anybody watch Eminem get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Not that anybody would have, that would be like a reasonable expenditure of time, but he proceeded to read off alphabetically everybody from 2 Live Crew, which starts with the 2, so it's at the top, all the way to ZZ Top, and he listed some 100 individuals in what was supposed to be like a tidy 4-minute acceptance speech. I'm not going to do that tonight. What I will say is you have... Council, you have made this a really incredible 5 years, a really incredible 3 years as council president. I am incredibly grateful to you, and I'm very much looking forward to see what you do moving forward. And I know that for some folks, it's not material, and for some folks, it doesn't overcome the size of the problems that we have here in Lancaster City. And yes, there are some really incredible challenges, but you have weathered a lot as a council. You have gotten, frankly, more funding for housing, more action to make sure law enforcement is engaged with and accountable to the community, more action on climate and on disability access than any other council in the history of the city of Lancaster that I can identify. And you should be proud of that. And as I step away from the dais this evening, I will be proud of that as well. I want to thank the mayor, of course. I would be remiss if I did not thank every single department head for giving me an incredible education. You get up here, you get elected, and you actually know nothing about combined sewer overflows, and yet you have to vote on and you have to figure out what that means, and you get up here and you have a lot of ideas about, okay, well, we're going to do A, B, C, D, X, Y, and Z to figure out that the first three are impossible, the fourth is financially infeasible, and the fifth is illegal in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm thinking of 5 very specific things, as a matter of fact, but that's all well and good. I look forward to seeing what comes out of this council, and I look forward to continuing to support you. And then my single largest thanks goes to Jessica King, who has really been a rock for me and a supporter from when I first got the job with the Mayor's Commission to Combat Poverty, and she gave me a desk in the corner of the office that she ran at the Assets office, and has had my back in a number of ways ever since then. Certainly there are many more thank yous. I'll take a moment to shout out the 2 other council presidents that I had, Councilor John Grapera and Councilor James Reichenbach, who I think deserve a lot of credit and have kept on serving their communities. I'm really emotional right now, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow, and there's some more business that we have to do before we close this evening. But just really, really grateful across the board. Okay, I have to, I'm going to, pack up my stuff here, but that piece of paper being turned in to Mr. Harris on behalf of the relevant parties, I resign effective immediately, which passes the meeting to Councilor Bakay as Vice President, please.
Thank you very much. And Council President, it will take me a minute to say former and to accept that. I would, as you're packing up, I would like to just say just a few words and give other members of council the opportunity to do so if they would like. To say thank you. You have been an incredible leader, an incredible friend, and that will continue past today. And just really set an example for all of us about what servant leadership can be and navigating difficult situations with grace and humor. And I've appreciated working with you so very much. Thank you so much for that time. And I wish you all of the luck in the world in your future endeavors, both in the near and far future. And I'll open it up to any other members of council that would like to make any statement at this time.
Council Vice President, I'd like to make a motion that Council Vice President becomes President of Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. This would be Councilor Craig, you're motioning that I would become council president. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. This is an internal organization, but I'll allow any council comments at this time on the motion. Hearing none. Mr. Harris?
Yes, Madam Vice President. Mr. Royo?
Aye.
Ms. Bakay?
Aye.
Mr. Cleese?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz? And Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Councilor Bakay, can I have that?
Yes, you may.
Your chair.
Okay.
I need the metal part.
Who else is going to use it? Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll move the meeting now to comments of members of council, and I will take a moment actually to outline several important points about filling the vacancy that is now on council. So I'll take a moment to do that first. Just first, some business. As your new council president, I am able to name a vice president, and I would like to name Councilor Craig as the new vice president of City Council.
Thank you, Council President.
Absolutely. And I will be taking the time to reorganize some of the committee chairs in the ensuing weeks. But until a new member of council is appointed, I will continue to chair the Finance Committee to ensure that the budget process for 2023 moves forward smoothly. Okay, so speaking on filling the vacancy on council. In the instance where there's a resignation of a member of City Council, the Board of Elections locally makes no provision for any special election. The remaining council members are required to fill the vacancy within 30 days, starting now. This appointment, this is important, will not fill out the remainder of Council President Smith Waddell's term. There will be an election for a 2-year seat in 2023. This will be in addition to the 3 seats that would regularly be up for election in that cycle. The person selected to fill this vacancy will do so until a new council is seated. However, any person appointed may seek election for any of the open seats. I would ask that anyone who is interested in filling this vacancy, please submit a resume and letter of interest to the city clerk at, this is Mr. Harris down here, bharris@cityoflancasterpa.gov, no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, November 11th. Please note that no late or incomplete submissions will be accepted. A special meeting of council will be held on Friday, November 17th at 6 p.m. to hold interviews with all of the applicants. I will ask members of council to submit to me questions for these applicants. I will select 6 varied questions, assign a question to each member of council, and those questions will be provided to the applicants in advance of that meeting. They will be asked in the same order each time. During the special meeting, applicants will get 15 minutes for their interview, beginning with up to 3 minutes to introduce themselves and explain why they'd like to fill this vacancy. The remaining time will be for the questions and answers. A motion to appoint a new council member will be made during a special meeting of council at 5:30 p.m. on December 5th. That's directly before our regular committee meetings. After that vote, the new council member will be sworn in, and I will also name and reaffirm the members of each committee. This will precede again our regular council committee meeting, and the new council will be seated for that meeting. These instructions will be provided in writing on the city's website. They will be shared on social media, and a press release will go out to local publications. So all of these details can be found in those various areas. I believe I have covered everything at this time, so I will turn it over to any other council comments.
Council President.
Yes.
I would just like to say to President Ismail, it's been a pleasure working with you. It's been a pleasure knowing you. I've known you your entire life. And that's it. It's been great.
Thank you very much, Vice President Craig. Councilor Cleeks.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to Ismail. It's been an honor running with you, serving with you. I wish it lasted longer. And I have watched you. I've watched you lead, advocate for the community. I've seen you on the streets in the front line, fighting for justice, equity, inclusion, diversity. So I wish you the best of the luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing you to seeing what you're doing in the future. And thank you for your service.
Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President Beke. Former Council President Smith Waddell, I just want to say it's been an honor to work with you directly, and again, looking forward to the future that you're going to help shape for a lot of people. So, without making any too many assumptions, enjoy the next few hours off, and then off to the gates.
Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Council President, and to former Council President. Wishing you all the best, and thank you for your years of service as well.
All right. Hearing no further comments from council, I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.